We say shalom, excuse me, shalom and good evening, La'ila Tob, peace and blessings, shalom and barak to the whole house of YAHUAH'S, all 12 tribes, wherever your feet are touching the soil on this La'ila. Shalom to you. Shalom to the elder Ak, Yehuda. Shalom to the younger Ak, Ephraim. Shalom to the former stranger, the former foreigner, the former Gentile, the former nation, who is no longer a Gentile nation, foreigner, or stranger, and no longer estranged from the everlasting covenant, but having been engrafted into the olive tree, who is Yahushua HaMashiach, who is YAHUAH'S, you are now a fellow citizen, an adopted son, and a fellow partaker in the same everlasting covenant that was given to YAHUAH'S and to YAHUAH'S alone. Shalom, shalom to you. La'ila Tub, good evening, peace and blessings. Shalom and barak to you and to your house, wherever your feet are touching the soil on this yom. Shalom, shalom to you. Shalom. And to our YouTube family, once again, we are grateful for you. For those of you who will listen to this teaching later on, we are grateful that Yahuwah has led you to YAHUAH'S Remnant channel to share in fellowship with us. We are grateful for you wherever your feet are touching the soil on this yom. I am Daoud Ben Yahuwah, and this is my Aisha Ashayah.
Shalom.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. So a little housekeeping, just a little housekeeping for those who may be new to YAHUAH'S Remnant channel, and those of you who have not been watching Abba's videos at any length. And just a reminder for those who have been watching at any length but may have stepped away for a time, just a little housekeeping. You will note that my Aisha now is reading for me. She is reading for me because for the time being, my eyes have dimmed to the point to where I can no longer see words, let alone the book that contains the words. But Yahuwah has promised to heal me. He has promised to restore my sight, and I believe him. But in the interim, until he does so, you will find my Aisha reading for me. This is very strategic. The reason that I'm speaking this is very strategic because it has to do with the message in which Yahuwah wants his servant to speak tonight. And the title of that message, if you're taking notes, multiple wives. In other words, polygyny, not to be confused with polygamy. Polygyny. Is it lawful or unlawful under Torah? Multiple wives, otherwise called polygyny. Is it lawful or unlawful under Torah? That is the question. This is a very controversial topic. It is a very divisive topic. Many have asked me to do videos on this, but I'm not moved by what people say. I'm only moved by Yahuwah. And Yahuwah has led me to now speak on this topic. He is intentional. He is not random. He works at appointed times. And so it is my appointed time now to speak about this subject, or to allow him to speak through his servant with respect to multiple wives, otherwise called polygyny. Before we get into this, let me preface this with something. Let me preface this teaching with a scripture, just so you understand something. Let me preface this with a scripture. And we're going to go now. You don't have to listen. There are going to be many precepts that are going to be read tonight. I don't expect each of you to turn to the page as we're reading, because that's only going to prolong this teaching. And so I don't want to wait on you to turn to the scripture so as to prolong the teaching. It's going to be long enough as it is. And so we're going to call the teaching, or we're going to tell you what scripture that we're reading, and we may repeat it, and then we're going to go into it. Later on, if you want to go back and revisit this teaching and follow along in the scriptures as it goes, then so be it. But so that the teaching is not too long, we're simply going to tell you what scriptures or precept that we're reading from. We'll probably repeat it, and then we'll go right into it. Ezekiel, the 2nd chapter, verses
1 through 8.
1 through 8. Ezekiel, the 2nd chapter, verses 1 through 8. Just so you understand me. Just so that you understand me. Ezekiel, YAHUAH'S, the 2nd chapter, verses 1 through 8. Beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
And he said to me, Son of man, stand on your feet so that I speak to you. And the Ruach entered into me when he spoke to me, and set me on my feet. And I heard him who was speaking to me. And he said to me, Son of man, I am sending you to the children of Yasharal.
I am sending you to the children of Yasharal. Read.
To a nation of rebels.
To a nation of rebels. You are a rebellious people, Yasharal. You are a stiff-necked people, Yasharal. You are a hard-hearted people, Yasharal. And my master has sent me to you this evening. Read.
Who have rebelled against me.
Who have rebelled against me.
They and their fathers have transgressed against me until this day.
They and their fathers have transgressed against me until this day. And you continue to transgress against your father, Yasharal. Many of you thinking that you're not transgressing. Thinking that your attempts to obey Torah in your flesh is enough. You can't obey the righteous Torah in your flesh. The Torah can only be obeyed from a place of ruah. And so you're still lawless. You're still rebellious. You're still stiff-necked, house of Yasharal. And you transgress until this day. Read, little one.
And the children are stiff of face and hard of heart, to whom I am sending you. And you shall say to them, Thus said the Master Yahuwah.
Yes.
And they, whether they hear or whether they refuse.
Whether they hear or whether they forbear. Read.
For they are a rebellious house.
For you are a rebellious and stiff-necked house, Yasharal. Yes, you are. You've been so since your inception. You are rebellious people. And my Father has sent me to speak to you. Read.
Shall know that a Nabi has been in their midst.
Yes.
And you, son of man, do not be afraid of them.
I'm not afraid of you, Yasharal. My Father has told me to not fear you. And I'm not afraid to speak righteousness. I'm not afraid to speak, thus says Yahuwah. I am a servant of righteousness. I love righteousness. I love to do righteousness. I love to speak righteousness. And he has sent me to speak righteousness this night. Read.
Nor be afraid of their words. Though thistles and thorns are with you, and you dwell among scorpions, do not be afraid of their words or discouraged by their looks, for they are a rebellious house.
You are a rebellious house.
And you shall speak my words to them, whether they hear or whether they refuse, for they are rebellious. And you, son of man, hear what I am speaking to you. Do not be rebellious like that rebellious house.
Do not be rebellious like this rebellious house of Yasharal.
Open your mouth and eat what I give you.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. You are a stiff-necked and rebellious people, Yasharal, who are controlled by your wicked flesh, who are controlled by the impulses of your wicked flesh. You are far from covenant with Yahuwah. You are far from relationship with him. You are far from him. And you are wicked and a stiff-necked and a rebellious people. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. What does that have to do with this subject? Well, bear with me. Bear with Abba. I pray that you listen. I pray that you listen to the whole conclusion of the matter and not develop your own opinion and not thinking that I'm going this way or that Abba is going this way or that way, but to listen intently to the whole matter as the whole matter is established this night. And that matter is concerning mixed multiple wives, otherwise called polygyny. Is it lawful or unlawful? Is it according to Torah, or is it Torahlessness? or is it Torahlessness? To begin answering this question, let's go back to the very beginning. Let's go back to the very beginning of the Torah, of the righteous Torah. Reading now from Bereshith, the 2nd chapter, otherwise called Genesis, the 2nd chapter, verses
18 to 24.
Verses 18 through 24. Beginning at verse 18, we read,
And YAHUAH'S said, It is not good for the man to be alone.
It is not good for man to be alone.
I am going to make a helper for him.
I'm going to make a helper for him.
As his counterpart.
As his counterpart.
And from the ground YAHUAH formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called each living being, that was his name. So the man gave names to all livestock and to the birds of the heaven and to every beast of the field. But for the man there was not found a helper for him as his counterpart. So YAHUAH caused a deep sleep to fall on the man, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. And the rib which YAHUAH had taken from the man, he made into woman. And he brought her to the man. And the man said, This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This one is called woman, because she was taken out of man. For this cause a man shall leave his father and mother.
For this cause a man shall leave his father and mother.
And cleave to his wife.
And cleave to his wife.
And they shall become one flesh.
And they shall become one flesh. And they shall become one flesh. Hear him. Hear him. Marriage is lawful under the Torah. Yes, it is. The Torah just said it is. Marriage is lawful under the Torah. The question is, does Yahuwah place a limit or a specific number on how many women that a man can marry? The question is, does Yahuwah place a specific number on how many women that a man can marry? Marriage is lawful. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The Torah said so. The question is, does Yahuwah place a specific number? Does Yahuwah place a specific number on the number of women that a man can marry? The answer is no. The answer is no. Don't go anywhere. Stay with me. Don't assume that I'm going to the left or to the right. Stay with me. Stay with Abba. He's come to establish order this night. The answer is no. Precept, little one.
Deuteronomy 17, 14, 17.
Deuteronomy 17, verses
14 through 17.
Verses 14 through 17. Deuteronomy 17, verses 14 through 17. Beginning at verse 14, we read,
When you come to the land which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you,
yes,
and shall possess it and shall dwell in it,
yes,
and you shall say, Let me set a sovereign over me like all the nations.
Let me set a sovereign over me like all the nations
that are around me. You shall certainly set a sovereign over you whom Yahuwah your Elohim shall choose. Set a sovereign over you from among your brothers.
Yes.
You are not allowed to set a foreigner over you who is not your brother.
Yes.
Only he is not to increase horses for himself.
Yes.
Nor cause the people to return to Mitzrayim to increase horses. For Yahuwah has said to you, do not return that way. And he is not to increase wives for himself.
He is not to increase wives for himself. It does not still put a specific number here. He is not to increase wives for himself. In other words, he is not to be greedy of gain. He is not to increase wives for himself. Read.
Lest he turn away, nor is he to greatly increase silver and gold for himself.
Barak Yahuwah. So there is no specific number. When you say, teacher, here he's talking about sovereigns. Do you not understand, Yasha'al, that a sovereign is set forth as an example to the people? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. No different than a priest is set forth as an example to the people. Why so? Because we are a nation, are we not, of rulers and priests? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So a sovereign is set forth as an example to a nation of rulers to teach us how to what? How to rule, how to rightly rule. No different than a priest. Indeed, the sovereign of Yasha'al is both priest and sovereign. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He is Melchizedek, both sovereign and priest. No different than when Abraham, returning from the battle of the kings, when he met Melchizedek, otherwise Shem, otherwise known as Shem, Asham, who was what? Who was both sovereign and priest of the city of Shalom, which later became Yerushalayim. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. We are Melchizedek, both sovereign and priest. And some of us are going to rule, and some are going to be ruled over. Some are going to be priests. So a sovereign, no different than a priest, hear him, is set forth as an example to the people. His behavior is set forth as an example to the people, no different than a Kahan. Indeed, again, he was a Kahan in the order of Melchizedek. He was both sovereign. He, Daud, was both sovereign and priest. He was the only one. All of the kings of Yasha'al, all of the sovereigns of Yasha'al were supposed to be Melchizedek, but he was the only one. He was the only one. And so now, in the Torah, in Deuteronomy 17, he speaks to the sovereign who is set forth as an example to the people. He's still here. Torah does not give a specific number in which a sovereign who is set forth as an example to the people can have. Precept, little one.
1 Samuel 1, 1 through 5.
1 Samuel 1, verses
1 through 5.
Verses 1 through 5. 1 Samuel 1, verses 1 through 5. Beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
And there was a certain man of Ramath Da'aim, Zupim of the mountains of Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, son of Yakam, son of Alhu, son of Tahu, son of Sup, of an Ephraimite, and he had 2 wives.
Hold up, little one. That's the wrong precept.
It is.
Yes, little one.
Oh, 1 Samuel.
Yes, it's the 1 Samuel when David.
Oh. Okay.
Hold on, Mashpaka. Little one has the wrong precept.
Okay. Now, which one is it? Because I thought Kana and...
Hold on, Mashpaka. When Nathan comes to David about him sleeping with Bathsheba. Hold on, Mashpaka. Little one has the wrong precept. Just give us a moment.
I thought that was in here too. Okay, I gotta find it.
Give us a moment, Mashpaka.
About the portion.
That's not yet, little one.
Oh, okay.
That's not till later.
Okay. Okay, 2 Samuel 12, 1 through 8.
2 Samuel 12, verses 1 through 8.
Okay. Go ahead.
2 Samuel 12, verses 1 through 8. Beginning at verse 1.
Okay.
Read.
Then Yahuwah sent Nathan to Daud, and he came to him and said, there were 2 men in one city, one rich and the other poor. The rich one had flocks and very many herds. Is this the right one?
Yes, it is.
Okay, but the poor one had only one little lamb which he had brought and kept alive. And it grew up with him and with his children together. It ate of his own food and drank from his own cup and lay in his bosom. And it was like a daughter to him. And a traveler came to the rich man who refused to take from his own flock and from his own herd to prepare one for the wayfaring men who had come to him. But he took the poor man's lamb and prepared it for the man who had come to him. And the wrath of Daud burned greatly against the man. And he said to Nathan, as Yahuwah lives, the man who has done this is a son of death. Also he has to repay fourfold for the lamb because he did this deed and because he had no compassion. Then Nathan said to Daud, you are the man. Thus said Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharal, I anointed you sovereign over Yasharal, and I delivered you from the hand of Shaul, and I gave you your master's house and your master's wives into your bosom, and gave you the house of Yasharel and Yehuda. And if that were not enough, I also would have given you much more.
And if that were not enough, I would have also have given you much more. Now, Deuteronomy 17 speaks to sovereigns who are representations of the people, who are set forth, rather, as examples to the people as both sovereign and priest. There in Deuteronomy 17 in the Torah, there is no specific number assigned to how many wives a sovereign can have who is set forth as an example to the people. Here in 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 1 through 8, Yahuwah speaking to Daud through Nathan, after Daud had taken Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah. He says to him, if you had wanted more wives, I would have given you more wives. You did not have to take this man's wife. Had you wanted more, I would have given you more. Daud had 7 wives of inheritance. In other words, Daud had 7 wives in which he paid a bride's price for. He had 10 wives who had no inheritance and who he did not pay a bride's price for, otherwise called concubines. Daud had a total of 17 wives. He had a total of 17 wives. And so here it is established that there is no specific number of wives that a sovereign who is Melchizedek, who is set forth as an example to the people, can have. There is no limit in Torah. There is no limit in Torah. With that being said, as we move forward with this teaching, we have to establish something. We have to establish a fact for those who may be listening and who do not understand this fact yet. And that is that Shaul, otherwise known as Paul, he both kept Torah and he taught Torah. He never spoke contrarily or did anything contrary to Torah. He kept Torah, he taught Torah, he did Torah, he spoke Torah, he wrote Torah. He spoke nothing or did nothing contrarily to Torah. It's important that we understand this going forward. We must understand this going forward so that there is no misunderstanding going forward. Read, little one.
You want me to read 1 Samuel now? 1 and 5?
That goes below.
Okay. So Acts 21, 17, 24?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Acts 21, 17 to 24.
Acts chapter 21, verses
17 to 24.
17 to 24. Acts chapter 21, verses 17 through 24. Beginning at verse 17, read.
And when we had arrived in Jerusalem, the brothers received us gladly. And on the following day, Shaul went in with us to Yaakov, and all the elders came. And having greeted them, he was relating one by one what Elohim had done among the nations through his service. And when they heard it, they praised the master. And they said to him, you see, brother, how many thousands of Yahudim there are who have believed and are all ardent for the Torah. But they have been informed about you that you teach all the Yahudim who are among the nations to forsake Masha, saying not to circumcise the children, nor to walk accordingly to the practices. What then is it? They shall certainly hear that you have come. So do this, what we say to you. We have 4 men who have taken a vow. Take them and be cleansed with them, and pay their expenses so that they shave their heads. And all shall know that what they have been informed about is not so, but that you yourself also walk orderly, keeping the Torah.
You yourself also walk orderly, keeping the Torah. Shaul kept the Torah. He taught Torah. He spoke Torah. He did Torah. He never spoke or taught contrarily to Torah. What does the Torah say? Marriage is lawful. The Torah also says in Deuteronomy 17 that there is no specific number of wives that a man can marry. We saw a precept to this that precept that in 2 Samuel 12 when we understand that sovereign Dawood, Melchizedek, had 17 wives. Had 17 wives. With that being said, give us a precept, little one.
1 Timothy 3, 1 and 2. Next.
Hold on. Mute your mic. Mute your mic. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Read, little one.
Okay, 1 Timothy 3, 1 and 2.
1 Timothy 3. Write these down. 1 Timothy 3, verses 1 through
2, 1 and 2.
1 and 2. The adversary does not want this to go forth, but it will go forth. In the name of Yahusha, it will go forth. Basham Yahusha. 1 Timothy 3,
1 and 2.
Basham Yahusha.
Verses 1 and 2.
Yes.
Beginning at verse 1. Read.
Trustworthy is the word if a man longs for the position of an overseer.
Trustworthy is the word if a man longs for the position of an overseer. In other words, an elder or a shepherd. A shepherd, someone presiding over an assembly. Trustworthy is the word. And the Christian church, the Catholic Church, has twisted this into bishop. This has nothing to do with the truth. This is merely a shepherd or an overseer or an elder. Trustworthy is the word
if a man longs for the position of an overseer,
Uh-huh.
he desires a good work.
Yes.
An overseer then should be blameless,
Mm-hmm.
the husband of one wife.
The husband of one wife.
Mia.
The husband of one wife.
Sober.
Sober.
Sensible. Orderly.
Orderly.
Kind to strangers.
Kind to strangers.
Able to teach.
Able to teach. Able to teach. Now, it was just spoken to you that Shaul never spoke contrarily to Torah. He never taught contrarily to Torah. He never did contrarily to Torah. This is Shaul writing a letter to Timotheus about an elder, about a shepherd. The Torah says that marriage is lawful. The Torah does not place a specific number on the number of wives that a man can have. So here it says that trustworthy is the word. Read.
Trustworthy is the word if a man longs for a position of an overseer.
If a man longs for the position of an overseer,
he desires a good work.
He desires a good work.
An overseer then should be blameless.
Blameless.
The husband of one wife.
The husband of one wife.
Sober.
Sensible.
Orderly. Kind to strangers. Able to teach.
Now, I told you that he never spoke contrarily to Torah. And so to understand this text, we must look beyond the English language. We must look to the language in which this is written, in the Greek tongue. One here is the Greek word mia. Mia. Mia means word. What? Mia means first. It means first. Mia means first. I need you to write that down. I need you to bookmark it. I need you to put it in the frontal lobe of your mind. Mia, M-I-A, means first. It means first. We're going to address this again later on. You're going to see this again. You're going to see this again to understand that Shaul is teaching Torah here. He is teaching Torah. Go on.
1 Corinthians 9 through 15.
1 Corinthians 9.
9 through 15.
Verses 9 through 15. Beginning at verse 9, we read.
For it has been written in the Torah of Moshe.
And for it has been written in the Torah of Moshe. I told you he taught Torah. Read.
You shall not muzzle an ox while it treads out the grain.
You shall not muzzle an ox while it treads out the grain.
Is it about oxen Elohim is concerned?
Is it about oxen? whom Elohim is concerned? Read.
Or does he say it is because of us all?
Or does he say it is because of us all? Read.
For this was written because of us, that he who plows should plow in expectation.
Yes.
And the thresher in expectation of sharing.
Yes.
If we have sown spiritual seed among you.
If we have sown spiritual seed among you.
Is it too much if we reap material goods from you?
Is it too much if we reap material goods from you?
If others share authority over you.
If others share authority over you, an elder, a shepherd, an overseer, read.
Should not rather we?
Should not rather we?
But we have not used this authority.
For we have not used this authority.
But we put up with all, lest we hinder the good news of Mashiach.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not know that those serving the Kadosh place eat from the Kadosh place?
Do you not know that those who serve the Kadosh place eat from the Kadosh place? Priests, Kahanim, read.
And those attending at the slaughter place have their share of the offering of the slaughter place?
Yes.
So also the master instituted that those announcing the good news should live from the good news. But I have used none of these, nor have I written this, that it should be done so to me. For it would be better for me to die than that anyone should make my boasting empty.
Barak Yahuwah. So now, this puzzle is beginning to open up. Shaul here is now showing us that an elder, an overseer, a shepherd is a priest. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. In the order of Melchizedek. And so if he is a priest, then that means what? He is set forth as an example to the people. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He is set forth as an example to the people. The people who are a nation of rulers and who are a nation of priests. Melchizedek. And so here, he too, a shepherd amongst the assemblies, an elder, an overseer, who is a priest, is set forth as an example to the people. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Read.
1 Timothy 5, 17 through 18.
1 Timothy 5, 17 through 18. 1 Timothy 5, verse 17 through 18. Read.
Let the elders who rule well be counted worthy of double respect.
Yes.
Especially those who labor in the word and teaching.
Yes.
For the scripture says, you shall not muzzle an ox while it treads out the grain, and the laborer is worthy of his wages.
He is a priest. As the physical priest in the order of Levi partook of the offerings from the altar, the priests in the order of Melchizedek, who are elders, who are shepherds, who are overseers, who feed you spiritual seed, are also to partake of the offerings. They are priests. They are priests. We are priests. We are priests. We are priests. And so, as a priest, we are set forth as an example to the people. And so this is going to make sense as we talk about Mia, as we talk about first, as we talk about Mia. I need you to understand, I need you to follow me, that Shaul is teaching Torah, that these shepherds, that these overseers are priests. And thus he says, let a shepherd, let an elder, let an overseer be the husband of Mia, of his first wife, of his first wife. Let him be the husband of his first wife. You must be an example. You must be an example to the people, to a nation of priests, to show them how to be rulers, to show them how to be priests. And so in being that example, let an elder, a shepherd, an overseer, be the husband of his Mia, his first wife. His first wife. Precept, little one.
Malachi 2, 1 through 17.
Malachi chapter 2. Malachi chapter 2, verse 1 through 17. Malachi chapter 2, verse 1 through 17. Malachi, verses 1 through 17. Beginning at verse 1, we read.
Oh, now, O priest, this
and
command
now,
is for you.
O priest, here, and now, O priest, read.
This command is for you.
This command is for you.
If you do not hear.
If you do not hear.
And if you do not take it to heart.
If you do not take it to heart.
To give esteem to my name.
Come on.
Said Yahuwah of hosts. I shall send a curse upon you.
Yes.
And I shall curse your blessing.
Yes.
And indeed I have cursed them because you do not take it to heart. See, I shall rebuke your seed. And scatter dung before your faces. The dung of your festivals. And you shall be taken taken away with it. And you shall know that I have sent this command to you as being my covenant with Louis, said Yahuwah of hosts. My covenant with him was life and peace, and I gave them to him to fear. And he feared me and stood in awe of my name. The Torah of truth was in his mouth.
The Torah of truth was in his mouth.
And unrighteousness was not found on his lips.
And unrighteousness was not found on his lips.
He walked with me in peace and straightness.
He walked with me in shalom and peace and straightness.
And turned many away from crookedness.
And turned many away from crookedness.
For the lips of a priest should guard knowledge.
For the lips of a priest should guard knowledge. Read.
And they seek the Torah from his mouth.
And they seek the Torah from his mouth. He is to be an example to the people. An example to the people. Read.
For he is the messenger of Yahuwah of hosts.
For he is the messenger of Yahuwah of hosts. Read.
But you have turned from the way. You have caused many to stumble in the Torah.
You have caused many to stumble in the Torah. You're supposed to be an example. You are set forth as an example to the people. No different than a sovereign. Read.
You have corrupted the covenant of Louis.
Yes.
Said Yahuwah of hosts.
And
I shall make you despised and low before all the people.
Yes.
Because you are not guarding my ways and are showing partiality in the Torah.
Because you're not guarding my ways and are showing partiality in the Torah. Read.
Have we not all one Father? Did not one all create us? Why do you act treacherously against one another to profane the covenant of the fathers? Yehuda has acted treacherously, and an abomination has been done in Yasharal and in Jerusalem. For Yehuda has profaned what is kadosh to Yahuwah, which he had loved, and he has married the daughter of a foreign mighty one. Let Yahuwah cut off from the tents of Yaakov the man who does this, stirring up one, answering and bringing one offering to Yahuwah of hosts. And this you have done a second time. You cover the slaughter place of Yahuwah with tears, with weeping and crying.
Listen.
Because he no longer regards the offering, nor receives it with pleasure from your hand. And you said, why? Because Yahuwah has been witness between you and the wife of your youth.
Because Yahuwah has been witness between you and the wife of your youth. Your first wife. Your first wife. Read.
Against whom you have acted treacherously. Though she is your companion and the wife of your covenant.
Though she is your companion and the wife of your covenant. Read.
And did he not make one? And he had the remnant of the spirit. And what is the one alone? He seeks a seed of Elohim. So you shall guard your spirit and let none act treacherously against the wife of his youth.
Against his first wife. Read.
For I hate divorce, said Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharal.
This is a mistranslation. This word is not divorce. The Hebrew or Abraite word for divorce is kaitu. Kaitu. The word here, the Hebrew or Abraite word here is shalak. What Yahuwah hates is the putting away. It's the sending away. It's the sending away. He makes provisions in the Torah for divorce. Yes, he does. Deuteronomy 24, verses 1 through 4. Yahusha in Matthew chapter 19 is not talking about divorce. He's talking about the sending away, the putting away. There is a difference between divorce and putting away or sending away a woman. When you send away a woman, what they were doing, the practice here is these priests were sending away their first wives without giving them a certificate of divorce. No different than what Yahusha was addressing in Matthew chapter 19. They were acting treacherously regarding their first wives. Why? Because they'd grown old. Their breasts had begun to sag. Their shapes had gone. Their hair had begun to become gray. And they were sending their wives away in lieu of a younger model. This Yahuwah hated. They were acting treacherously towards their first wives, towards the wives of their youth. We see an example of this in the book of Jasher, when the fallen messengers had taught, as mankind had begun to spread upon the earth, and the daughters of men began to become beautiful and shapely. They taught the sons of men how to make a drove or a drink to give to their wives to drink, so that they would become barren and so that they would maintain their shapes. And it was these that they preferred, but their wives who had children, who had lost their shapes and their breasts had begun to sag, they sent them away. They acted treacherously towards them. And so Yahuwah is saying here, you Priests, you are supposed to be an example to the people, to show them how to be priests. Do not act treacherously towards your first wife. Do not send her away when she becomes old, when her breasts begin to sag, when her shape goes away and when her hair turns gray. Do not send her away. You have acted treacherously towards her. You have put her away, and I have this against you. I have this against you. It's not talking about divorce. He's talking about the sending away. Shalak. This is the word here. This is the word. They were acting treacherously towards the wife of their youth, who is the wife in which they first entered into covenant with, whom they first entered into a covenant with, and in whom, as the first wife, is looked upon like a firstborn son. She is the wife of inheritance. She is the wife of inheritance. And they were acting treacherously towards the wives of their youth, towards the first wife, towards those who they had first entered into covenant with, and whom their souls had first been joined with, and whom is the wife of inheritance, who is akin to a firstborn. They were acting treacherously towards them. And so Shaul, talking to priests, and the order of Melchizedek says, let an elder be the husband of his first wife. Mia, be an example to the people. Read, little one.
And the one who covers his garment with cruelty, said Yahuwah of hosts, so you shall guard your spirit and do not act treacherously. You have wearied Yahuwah with your words, and you have said, in what way have we wearied him? In that you say, everyone who does evil is good in the eyes of Yahuwah, and he is delighting in them. Or where is the Elohim of right ruling?
Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. A precept to this to further drive home that the wife of your youth, the wife of our youth, is our first wife, the wife of the covenant, the wife in which you first enter covenant with. Mia, the wife of inheritance, akin to a firstborn, and whom Yahuwah admonishes the priest for acting treacherously towards them. You do not act treacherously towards her when she becomes old, when her breasts sag, and her shape goes and her hair turns gray. You do not send her away for a younger woman. You do not send her away. He says, I hate the sending away. Shalak, that's not divorce. He makes provision for divorce. He makes provision for divorce. But you do not simply send her away just because she has grown old and she is no longer attractive to you. Read, little one.
The book of Testament of Issachar.
The Testament of Issachar.
1 through 10.
Chapter 1, verses 1 through 10. The Testament of Issachar. Chapter 1, verses 1 through 10. The Testament of Issachar. Chapter 1, verses 1 through 10. Beginning at verse 1, read, little one.
For he called his sons and said to them, hearken, my children, to Issachar your father. Give ear to the words of him who is beloved of the master. I was born the fifth son to Yaakov by way of hire for the mandrakes. For Ruaban, my brother, brought in mandrakes from the field, and Rachel met him and took them. And Ra'aban wept, and at his voice La'ah, my mother, came forth. Now these mandrakes were sweet-smelling apples which were produced in the land of Haran, below a ravine of water. And Rachel said, I will not give them to thee, but they shall be to me instead of children. For the master hath despised me, and I have not borne children to Yaakov. Now there were 2 apples, and La'ah said to Rachel, let it suffice thee that thou hast taken my husband. Wilt thou take these also? And Rachel said to her, thou shalt have Yaakov this night for the mandrakes of thy son. And La'ah said to her, Yaakov is mine, for I am the wife of his youth.
For I am the wife of his youth. Was not La'ah the first wife? Yes, she was. Laban tricked Yaakov. He laid with La'ah first. She was his first wife, the wife of his youth. Mia, first. And we see in this example, because Yaakov acted treacherously toward Leah, because he loved Rachel or Rachel more, what do we see? That Yahuwah was moved to compassion because he was acting treacherously towards his first wife, the wife of inheritance, the wife in which he first entered into covenant with. And he favored her and opened her womb. And he closed the womb of Rachel because YAHUAH'S was acting treacherously towards La'ah. And what did he do? He gave her an inheritance. Yes, he did. Are not children an inheritance? Yes, they are. Children are an inheritance. La'ah bore 6 sons to YAHUAH'S and 1 daughter, Dinah. She bore 7 children to YAHUAH'S. She had the greater inheritance because she was the first wife. She was the wife of his youth, Mia. We must understand, we must rightly divide the word of truth. We must rightly divide it. Shaul never spoke against Torah. He never taught contrary to Torah. He taught Torah. That word is Mia, and it means first. You priests, do not act treacherously towards your first wife. Let an elder, let a shepherd, let an overseer be the husband of his first wife. Be an example, and do not act treacherously towards her when she begins to grow old. Do not act treacherously towards her. Read, little one.
Devarim 22:22.
Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 22. Deuteronomy, Devarim chapter 22, verse 22. Line by line, precept upon precept. Multiple wives, otherwise known as polygyny. Lawful or unlawful. Marriage is lawful. The question is there a limit on the number of women that a man can marry? The answer is no. Deuteronomy 22, verse 22. Read.
When a man is found lying with a woman married to a husband,
yes,
then both of them shall die. Both the man that lie with the woman and the woman. Thus you shall purge the evil from Yasharal.
A man only commits adultery by lying with another man's wife, a married woman. This is the only way that a man can commit adultery, is by lying with a married woman. If he lies with an unmarried woman, this is either an act of marriage or an act of whoredom. It can only be adultery if he lies with another man's wife. Line upon line, precept upon precept. Leviticus read the same thing. Out of the mouth of 2 or more witnesses, let every matter be declared. Read.
20:10, Leviticus. And a man who commits adultery with the wife of another man, who commits adultery with the wife of his neighbor, the adulterer and the adulteress shall certainly be put to death.
Again, a man can only commit adultery by lying with another man's wife. If he lies with a single woman, it is either an act of marriage or an act of whoredom. Read, little one, precept.
Exodus 22:16-17.
Exodus 22, verses 16
to 17.
Through 17. Read.
And when a man entices a maiden who is not engaged.
And when a man entices a maiden, a virgin who is not engaged, the text does not declare if whether or not this man is married or not, because it makes no difference if whether or not he's married or not. Because a man only commits adultery by lying with another man's wife. Read.
And he lies with her. He shall certainly pay the bride's price for her to be his wife.
Yes.
If her father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he pays according to the bride price of maidens.
Yes. Precept. Read.
Deuteronomy 22, and 29.
Deuteronomy 22, verses
22 to 29.
22 through 29. Starting at verse 22.
When a man is found lying with a woman married to a husband.
When a man is found lying with a woman married to a husband. Read.
Then both of them shall die.
Then both of them shall die. I told you, the only way that a man can commit adultery is by lying with another man's wife. Read.
Both the man that lay with the woman and the woman. Thus you shall purge the evil from Yasharal. When a girl who is a maiden is engaged to a husband, and a man finds her in the city and lies with her, then you shall bring them both out of the gate of that city, and shall stone them to death with stones. The girl because she did not cry out in the city, and the man because he has humbled his neighbor's wife. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst. But if a man finds the girl who is engaged in the field, and the man takes hold of her and lies with her, then only the man who lay with her shall die. But you shall do no matter to the girl. The girl has not committed crime worthy of death. For the matter is like a man who arises against his neighbor and murders him, a being. For he found her in the field, and she cried out, the engaged girl, but without anyone to save her. When a man finds a girl who is a maiden who is not engaged, and he seizes her and lies with her, and they are found out, then the man who lay with her, he shall give to the girl's father 50 pieces of silver. And she is to be his wife because he has humbled her. He is not allowed to put her away all his days.
He is not allowed to put her away all his days. A man only commits adultery by lying with another man's wife. If he lies with a single woman, whether or not he is married or not, that is either an act of marriage or whoredom. Or whoredom. It's either marriage or whoredom. It's nothing else. It is either marriage or whoredom. If his intent is marriage, then it is marriage. If his intent is not to form a covenant or a bond with that woman, it is whoredom. It is whoredom. And the only way a man can commit adultery is by lying with another man's wife. Another man's wife. What we got, little one?
With that being said.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Now, with that being said, multiple wives, otherwise known as polygyny, lawful or unlawful. Marriage is lawful. Marriage is lawful. That is really the question. Marriage is lawful. The question is there a limit on the number of women that a man can marry? And that answer is no. With that being said, all things that are lawful are not expedient. All things, just because it is lawful to do, does not mean that it is expedient to do. Just because it is lawful under Torah for a man to have multiple wives, it does not mean that it is expedient to do so. Read, little one.
Exodus 21, 7 through 11.
Exodus 21, verses
7 through 11.
Verses 7 through 11. Exodus 21, verses 7 through 11. Beginning at verse 7, read.
And when a man sells his daughter to be a female servant, she does not go out as the male servants do. If she is displeasing in the eyes of her master who has engaged her to himself, then he shall let her be ransomed. He shall have no authority to sell her to a foreign people because of him deceiving her. And if he has engaged her to his son, he is to do to her as is the right of daughters.
And if he has engaged her to his son, he, the father, is to do to her as the right of daughters. Read.
If he takes another wife.
If he, the son, takes another wife besides her, read.
Her food.
Her food.
Her covering.
Her covering.
And her marriage rights.
And her marriage rights.
Are not to be diminished.
Are not to be diminished. Are not to be diminished. So here in the Torah, it is established that a man must provide a woman's portion. Listen, not as a whole, individually. You make an individual covenant with these women. And so each of them is to have their own portion, their own food, their own clothing, their own marital rights, their own shelter. You are to provide them their own provisions. Having multiple wives in one dwelling is out of order. It is Torahlessness. 99% of those who engage in this cannot afford it. You can't afford it. Most who engage in this, the rebellious house of YAHUAH'S, can't even afford a light bill, let alone multiple wives. You must be able to provide each of them a house, each of them their own food, each of them their own clothing, and each of them have obviously their own marital rights. Having these women in one dwelling is not Torah. And if you cannot provide each of them their portion, then you must let them go. You must let them go, rebellious house. You must let them go, stiff-necked people, because you can't afford them. If you cannot provide the portion for one wife, her food, her clothing, her marital rights, and her shelter, then you can't afford her. You must let her go. You must let her go. She is not to work. You are to work, man. You are to provide for her. You are to provide her food, her clothing, her shelter, her marital rights. You are. The notion of having multiple wives in a house and sending them out to work, you are a pimp. You are a pimp, and Yahuwah is going to judge you. He's going to deal with you. You are out of order. You are bringing these women in here just to satisfy the desires and the lust of your wicked flesh. And you are out of order. You can't afford them. 99.9% of us can't afford it. Can't afford to provide each of them food, each of them clothing, each of them shelter, each of them marital rights of their own individually. You can't afford it. And if you can't afford it, it's not expedient. You are out of order. You are out of order. Go up, little one, above and get that precept in 1 Samuel.
Okay. You want me to Okay.
Mm-hmm.
1 Samuel 1 through 5.
1 Samuel 1, verses 1 through 5. 1 Samuel 1, verses 1 through 5. Beginning at verse 1. Read.
And there was a certain man of Ramathaim, Zuphim, of the mountains of Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, son of Yaram, son of Alhu, son of Tuhu, son of Saph, an Ephraimite. And he had 2 wives.
And he had 2 wives. Listen.
The name of one was Kana.
The name of one was Kana, otherwise known as Hannah. Read.
And the name of the other Panana.
Mm-hmm.
And Panana had children.
And Panana had children.
But Kana had no children.
But Kana had no children. Read.
Now this man went up from his city year by year to worship.
Yes.
And to slaughter to Yahuwah of hosts in Shiloh.
Yes.
And the 2 sons of Allah, Kaphanah and Pankas, the priest of Yahuwah, were there.
Mm-hmm.
And when the day came for Elkanah to make a slaughtering, he gave portions to Panana, his wife, and to all his sons and daughters. But although he loved Kana, he gave only 1 portion to Kana, because Yahuwah had shut up her womb.
Do you hear? Each wife gets her portion. They don't share. Each gets their portion. Each gets their own portion of food. Each gets their own clothing. Each gets their own shelter. Leah had her own tent. Rachel had her own tent. Bilhah and Zilpah had their own tents. Hagar, Abram's concubine, had her own tent. This ain't heathenism. They don't sleep in the same house. This is out of order. This is not Torah. Torah says that you have to provide each of them their own portion. And if you cannot provide each of them their own portion, you can't afford them. Oh, you say you bought this one a house. Good. Then you got to buy that one a house as well. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You bought this one a car. Good. You got to buy that one a car as well. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. This is Torah. Each one must have their own portions. These are not my words. We just read the text. Each one must have their own portions. Scroll back down, little one, and give me another precept.
2 Chronicles 8:11.
2 Chronicles 8, verse 11. 2 Chronicles 8, verse 11. You out of order. You are a wicked, stiff-necked, and rebellious house, living in heathenism. Marrying multiple women just because Torah said so, but it's not expedient. You can't afford them. You cannot afford them, and you must let them go. You must let them go under Torah because you cannot afford them. They do not work. You work, man. You work as ordained by Torah. 2 Chronicles 8, verse 11, read.
And Shalama brought the daughter of Parah up from the city of Dawood to the house he had built for her.
To the house he had built for her. They get their own portion. Read.
For he said, my wife does not dwell in the house of Dawood, sovereign of Yasharam, for the place where the ark of Yahuwah has come is Kadush.
Shalama built a house for his first wife, the daughter of Parah. He built a house for her. Now, I pray that you understand that Shalama had a total of 700 wives with inheritance. In other words, 700 wives that he had paid a bride's price for. He had 300 wives that he did not pay a bride's price for and who did not have an inheritance. He had 1,000 wives. I pray that you understand that 1,000 women did not live in one house. He was able to provide a dwelling for each of these women because Shalama was a very rich man. He was rich beyond imagination. Malak Daoud, Sovereign Daoud, was also rich. And he could provide for each of these women their own shelter, their own portions of food, their own clothing, and their own marital rights. He could provide for each one. If you cannot, you're unlawful. And it is not expedient. Indeed, most of you are living foul. Most of you are living Torahless. It's not expedient. All things that are lawful are not expedient. It is not expedient for you to do so if you can't meet the mandates of Torah. If you cannot meet the mandates of Torah, many of you are living foul. You're living foul. And he sent his servant of righteousness by to speak to you, to speak truth to you, to declare to you to repent, because this is foul. This is not righteousness. This is not righteousness. You are doing this to fulfill the filthy, lustful desires of your flesh. Most of you, not all of you, but most of you. But 99.9% of us cannot afford this. Cannot afford this. And that makes it not expedient. It's not expedient. And neither is it lawful. Read, little one.
Genesis 3:15-17.
Genesis 3. Genesis, the 3rd chapter. Listen to the Torah. Genesis, the 3rd chapter, verses 15 through 17. Begin at verse 15. Read, little one.
And I put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed.
Yes.
He shall crush your head, and you shall crush his heel.
Yes.
To the woman he said, I greatly increase your sorrow and your conception.
To the woman I greatly increase your sorrow in conception.
Bring forth children in pain.
Bring forth children in pain.
And your desires for your husband.
And your desires for your husband.
And he does rule over you.
And he does rule over you. This is the judgment pronounced over women. Women, for your mother Kua partaking of the fruit. Here, a woman, the judgment pronounced over women is for you to bear children. And in pain, you're going to bring them forth. And your desire is going to be for your husband, and he does rule over you. It does not say that you are to go out to work and provide for your husband. No, you are to bring forth children in pain, and your desire is to be for your husband, and he does rule over you. You're out of order, Zion. You're out of order. If you can't afford these women, let them go. It is not expedient. And Abba's going to judge you. He's going to judge this wickedness. First in the house of YAHUAH'S and then to the nations. He's going to judge your wickedness. Control your loins. Control your wicked flesh. You are out of order. You are out of order. Read, little one.
And to the man he said.
And to the man he said.
Because you have listened to the voice of your wife.
Yes.
And you have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, saying, do not eat of it.
Yes.
Cursed is the ground because of you.
Cursed is the ground because of you.
In toil you are to eat of it all the days of your life.
Yes. The man now, because of this transgression of partaking of the fruit, is to work. To work. And to provide for his wife or wives. And if you can't afford to provide for a wife, you can't afford to provide for wives. And if you can't afford to provide for them, the Torah says that you are to let them go. If you cannot work and earn for them, the Torah declares that you are to let them go. Don't get mad at me. This is the Torah. You claim that you follow Torah. This is the Torah. The Torah. In Exodus, the 22nd chapter, declares that if you can't provide for them their portion, then you are to let them go, inclusive of their houses, their homes. You must let them go. Everything that is lawful is not expedient. Everything that is lawful it's not expedient. And most importantly, we're at the weightier matters.
Yep, this is the last precept.
Most importantly, we must consider the weightier matters of the Torah, the right ruling, the compassion, and the belief. If we're not operating in the weightier matters of the Torah, then whatever we are engaging in is still unlawful, and it is not expedient. We live in a westernized society. We live in a westernized society where we have been reared in westernized culture. If you are residing with a woman and you have come into truth and you see now that you can have multiple wives, but this thing is going to be grievous to your wife, it is going to injure her, then it becomes not expedient. You must consider her. Yes, you do. You must consider her. You must live with her as to live understandingly with her as to the weaker vessel so that your prayers are not hindered. You must love her as you love yourself. You must put her before you. Indeed, this applies to multiple wives. This applies even to having multiple wives. You must love each of those wives as you love yourself. You must put each of them before you. Most of you who are living in hedonism don't even have the capacity to love yourself, let alone loving each of these women as you love yourself and putting them before you. You don't have the capacity to do so. And you must have the capacity to love each of them as you love yourself and to put each of them before yourself. Dawood did. Yes, he did. He was a man after YAHUAH'S own heart. He was very tender towards those women. And a precept to that is when Absalom tried to take over the throne and Dawood had to flee to the wilderness. And Absalom, because of what Dawood had done with Bathsheba in secret, Absalom taking his 10 half-wives, his 10 wives without inheritance up onto the roof and lying with them in the presence of all, committing adultery. He committed adultery with his father's wife. But sovereign Dawood, being full of compassion, being full of the weightier matters of the Torah, knowing full well that he could have put these women to death for committing adultery, but knowing full well because he had the heart of YAHUAH, understanding first why this took place, that this was of YAHUAH, and understanding secondly that these women had no choice. These women, they had no choice. You see, Dawood, he also followed the Torah. And what does the Torah say? If a man takes a woman out in the field and she's engaged or married to a woman, then only the man is going to die. But if a man lies with a woman in the city, as Absalom did them, then only the man is going to die. Only the man is to die. Dawood followed Torah, and he showed compassion towards these women. He was tender towards these women. And while he never went into them again, he sent them away. He shalak. He put them away, and he provided for these women for the rest of their lives. He still fed them. He still clothed them. He still gave them shelter for the rest of their lives, but he didn't go into them. Dawood was a tender man. He was tender-hearted. And we must be tender-hearted towards them. Whether it's one or whether it's many, you must be tender-hearted towards them, loving and patient and kind towards them. In the same way that YAHUAH is tender and loving and patient and kind towards us. Many of you have never experienced the love of YAHUAH. So because you haven't experienced this kind of love, you don't know him that way, it's hard for you to treat your wives that way. Your marriage is supposed to be a microcosm of our marriage with YAHUAH. Whether or not it's with one wife of many, it's supposed to be a microcosm of our marriage with YAHUAH. A tender one, a loving one, patient and caring towards these women, living understandingly with them so that our prayers are not hindered, understanding that one day that they are going to be co-heirs with us, that they're going to co-rule with us. They're going to reign with us one day. And so you must take into account, if you're coming into this walk and you're now noticing that, well, I can take on a different wife, if it's going to injure her. Some of these women come from brokenness. They come from brokenness, and this will injure them. Many of them have a westernized mindset, and this will injure her. You cannot do it. You cannot simply discard the way she feels. You must accept the way she feels. Indeed, if you don't have that kind of bond with your wife, when she hurts, you hurt. If you don't have that kind of tie, if your covenant is not that strong with her, when she hurts, you hurt. When you understand what she feels, if you don't have that kind of bond with her, you need to work on growing deeper into the bond of covenant with YAHUAH'S. You cannot simply do what you want to do and totally disregard the way she feels. You must be tender and kind and loving towards her. Loving and patient towards her. Willing to die for her. Willing to give up your life for her. And if you love her, as you love yourself, you will care how she feels about this. You will care how she feels. And if it injures her again in any way, and you go ahead and do this anyway, Yahuwah is going to judge you. He's going to deal with you. He's going to deal with you for causing one of his little ones to stumble. He is going to deal with you. I pray that this message goes out to Yasha all, to the four corners of the YAHUAH'S, and that you come out of this foolishness, that you loosen your stiff neck. My Aisha just reminded me, I think we have one more precept. Is that right, little one? We got one more precept from the book of Matthew. The book of Matthew, chapter 6.
25, 31.
Verses 25 through 31. Matthew, chapter 6, 25 through 31. Read, little one.
Because of this I say to you, do
Yes.
not worry about your life, what you shall eat or drink, or about your body, what you shall put on it. Is not life more than the food, and the body more than clothing?
Mm-hmm.
Look at the birds of the heaven, for they neither sow nor reap,
Mm-hmm.
nor gather into storehouses.
Mm-hmm.
Yet your heavenly Father does feed them.
Mm-hmm.
Are you not worth more than they?
Mm-hmm.
And which of you by worrying is able to add 1 cubit to his lifespan? So why do you worry about clothing? Note well the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And I say to you that even Shalama in all his esteem was not dressed like one of these. But if Elohim so clothes the grass of the field, which exists today and tomorrow is thrown into the furnace, how much more, O you of little belief? Do not worry then, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear?
Again, as stated, a marriage to be a microcosm of our marriage with our husband, YAHUAH. A microcosm, and you are to treat your wife in the same way that he treats us, in a loving way, in a gentle way, in a patient and kind way. You are to treat her the same way. And as we read here, as our loving husband, YAHUAH, as he clothes us, each of us, he gives each of us our portion. Each of us a portion. We are to mirror him. You are to give each of them their portion. Each. As he gives each of us our portion, as he gives each of us food, he gives each of us clothing, he gives each of us shelter. And if you have entered into covenant with him, meaning as a man enters a woman, his ruach enters you, then he gives you marital rights. He gives you marital rights when he communes with us via his ruach. And so we are to mirror this example. We are to mirror this example. Just because something is lawful does not mean that it is expedient. Come out of this foolishness. Come out of this wickedness. And come back to the ancient path, the path of righteousness that leads to everlasting life. I pray that this has been edifying. I pray that this has been encouraging. I pray that the people of Yahuwah, that your eyes have been opened. I pray, Abba, that this word is not fallen void to the ground, but that it is accomplished that which you have sent it forth to do. That not one seed is fallen by the wayside, and that not one seed is falling amongst thorns, that not one seed is falling on stony ground, but that this seed has indeed fallen on fertilized soil, tilled and fertilized soil, such that your ruach will come and water that seed, so that it will grow up to become a mighty tree, producing the fruit that leads to everlasting life. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, so be it. To those of you on YouTube, once again, thank you for joining YAHUAH'S Remnant on this fourth night gathering. We pray that you have gained something, some understanding. We pray that you've been edified. We pray that you've been encouraged. And I pray that some of you who will listen have been convicted. Until the next time, Yahuwah barak you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor unto you. Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you shalom. Thus you shall put my name on the children of Yasha'al, and I myself shall barak them. So be it, so be it, so be it.